All right, you grasshoppers. Well, this is a real thrill for me today. Really honored to have Nate Boyer. When you hear his story, you know, it's funny, Nate. I did a radio show probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and the guy at the start of the show listed all the things I'd done in my life. And I'm listening to him talking. I'm going, oh, that's pretty cool. I did a lot of things. And then I looked on your website and followed you, all the stuff that you've done. You've done a lot of things in your life too, right?
Yeah, not all good, but yeah, a lot of things.
We'll get into that more. So Nate served our country again. Thank you very much for your service to our country. He was in the Army. Sure. Then he went to college after that, Texas Longhorns, had never played football before, became a long snapper with the Texas Longhorns, and then turned pro with the Seattle Seahawks. So he's had quite a life here. Now he's a motivational speaker and a studly dude out there in Nevada with his parents. So how's the weather out there in Nevada?
It's great, man. You know, they moved out here just a couple of months ago. This is my first time here, and they're a little south of Reno, but it's beautiful. It's they're not getting the summer heat yet. I can see snow on the top of the mountains if I look out this window. Nice. You know, so at night it cools down quite a bit, but it's cool. You know, because I live in Los Angeles mostly, and it's very different. But it's beautiful out here. I wish I could show you it. It wouldn't look as good on your screen as it does with the naked eye here.
Where were you born and raised? So you're in Texas, right? You're a Texas guy?
I just went to college there. I was born in Tennessee. I was born in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. My dad went to veterinary school at the University of Tennessee. He was a racehorse veterinarian for a long time. And him and my mother had me out there. And then they moved to the Bay Area where I mostly grew up, San Francisco Bay, when I think I was just 2. So I grew up there most of my life, and then lived in Southern California a little after high school, worked on a fishing boat for a bit, did some other things. And then, you know, when I joined the military, that took me to some other places.
Right. No kidding.
Yeah.
So you joined the Army after 9/11. Does that kind of prompt you?
Yeah. I mean, not right after, a few years after, but yes.
Right. Was your goal you became a Green Beret, correct?
Yeah, that's what I signed up to do. That was a contract I had when I joined. Yeah, it was something they opened up in 2003. To help bolster the regiment there, and they wanted some people with some different experiences. They didn't want all guys that had regular Army experience that had kind of been raised a certain way in that military culture to do things a certain way, because it's a lot of outside the box thinking. So they opened up this. It was called the 18 X-ray contract. You could come in off the street if you tested high enough, and they'd let you try out for special forces. So basically, you went to airborne school after basic training. And you go to a pre-selection course, and then you go to a special forces selection. And if you pass that, you start your year to year and a half long training to become a Green Beret. So the attrition rate was really high. Most of the guys that had the contract like me ended up, you know, in the infantry and doing other things, wherever the needs of the Army were. Right. But I'd say if I was to guess, I don't know, 10 to 20% of us made it all the way through the pipeline and earned their Green Beret, and, you know, served with the special forces for the bulk of their.
So obviously that's the way they want it, right? They want to weed out the people that just, you know, aren't going to be strong enough to handle it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to know until you really test somebody, like what they're going to be made of. I mean, you know that with, I think, you know, professional hockey, like it's not always the guy that looks the part that's the one. It's so much about, I mean, it's the true grit. You know what I mean? It's the person that just keeps going and just has zero quit in them and works harder than everybody else. It's not always the most talented. It's usually not the most talented, actually.
Isn't that true? Like, I tell people that all the time. That I'm not humble. I can be cocky sometimes, but I'm not humble. I am being humble when I say this in some ways. I was never the best player on any team I ever played on, you know, and I just kept moving up the level. And I grew up on the farm with my father and grandfather. That was just the mentality. It was getting up every day and milking the cows. So that's all I ever knew. It was just, you know, I had to get up and milk the cows, you know, and get to work and do my job. But it is interesting. It really helps me now when I speak to people, look back in my life the same way as you do, right? It's like, you know, I don't think you feel like you're anything special. I don't think I was anything special. I just showed up and did my job every day, really. That was the big key for me.
Yeah. Exactly. No, that's it. It's just that's the biggest, toughest part is just showing up.
Yeah. Is that true?
You're willing to just do that every day. It doesn't matter how tired you are and worn out. If you just show up, like, you're going to find some kind of motivation throughout the day. Yeah. Something's going to, you know, get you moving. And then you see your other, you know, your brothers or sisters or whatever, comrades in arms in the military and, you know, the same jersey in sports that are there too. They showed up as well. That's motivation enough to, you know, if I'm here, I might as well work hard. I mean,
right. It isn't true too. The guy that shows up every day and is always reliable, so a lot of times doesn't get any credit for it because he's always there. People don't realize that he's there all the time, right? It's the guy that doesn't show up all the time. All of a sudden he's there. Well, geez, he's there all the time. So that's
that's a good point.
Part too. So how long were you in the Army?
I served a total of 10 years. I did a little less, 9 and change, but I always round up, But I did 5 on active duty first. And then when I went to college, I actually transitioned into the National Guard and kept serving. So when I was in school, I did 2 deployments actually when I was at University of Texas playing football. And they would send me, I took my finals early, and they would send me basically from April to August back to Afghanistan. And then I would come home and go to training camp and, play football that season and kind of do the whole thing and go to school, So it was a very different college experience.
No kidding. Yeah. How many deployments did you have total?
I did a total of 3 combat deployments, but I also went 3 other times. I went to Israel, Bulgaria, and Greece, doing partnered missions, working with their special forces. So it's not like a combat deployment in the sense of we're not doing offensive operations, but you are training with them and patrolling with them in their countries.
Right. And I almost hate to ask this. Sometimes I know a lot of guys that come back and have some problems with PTSD or issues like that. You're okay? All good?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely deal with it like many of us do. It's a part of my life, but it doesn't control me. It's not something I feel makes me even worse. Like there's a lot of, in a strange way, there's a lot of positive outcomes from post-traumatic stress and stuff like that, because you have to think about things in a different way. It helps you manage stress because you have to know when things are coming, and also it hardens you in a certain way, and you approach life differently when you realize that perspective and kind of what you've experienced and what you've been through, and the fact that you were able to survive it. So it's not all a bad thing, but it can be. I mean, certain people definitely it can be overwhelming and kind of controlling in some ways of their lives, and that's frustrating. So I think I'm fortunate that I don't feel that my post-traumatic stress, that I'm beholden to it in any way.
Right. I noticed you didn't call it a disorder. You just called it post-traumatic stress. I saw another guy that was getting awarded at the White House, and he did the same thing. He said, we shouldn't call it post-traumatic stress disorder.
Well, post-traumatic stress is a very normal response to some pretty extreme circumstances. And it's not all military related either. I think we often in society kind of couple it with the veteran experience, because so many veterans do have it, live with it, but it's not necessarily something that, like I said, is a negative thing. And also B, people can have post-traumatic stress from various things, from a car accident, from something in your childhood that you had to overcome. And with that being said, in the context of war and the veteran experience, I mean, if it doesn't affect you in some way when you're around that type of the high level of stress, getting shot at, injured potentially, experiencing death, losing one of your friends, if that doesn't affect you in some way, if you don't have some sort of post-traumatic stress regarding that, that's a bigger issue. You know what I mean? If you're just like, whatever, it's fine. That's unhealthy to me. So that disorder moniker it's tough, because it's and I think that they're shying away from it more and more now, because it's not. I mean, if it's to the point where, like I said, your mental health is greatly affected, or you're not able to operate in your daily life and function in a healthy way, then maybe we can talk about that being a disorder or something that needs to be handled. But post-traumatic stress is not a bad thing. I mean, it's a very normal thing, considering.
You don't want to get labeled like there's something wrong with you, right? You've gone through a tough time, and logically, I'm going to change the way I am, right? The way I think about things. Yeah.
I mean, just like a comparison with a professional athlete would be, it's not necessarily always post-traumatic stress. Sometimes it's like a lack of traumatic stress, missing, when you left the game. I mean, you played for a long time, when you leave the game, it's not easy, and that stuff, it can bother you, and missing the locker room, missing the high stakes of the game, missing that your life, so much of what your life was preparation and then performance for that thing. And then now that's gone. You lose that identity. There's going to be an effect there, and if there's not, then that's kind of weird.
So you leave the Army. Now you go to school in Texas. Any reason why you chose Texas?
You know, I loved Austin. I don't know if you've ever been to Austin, Texas, but it's a great.
I've heard some great things, but I haven't been there. Yeah.
Yeah, you should go. It's an amazing place. Texas is very good to their veterans. Very good to the veteran community. Just as a state, they make sure they have a lot of opportunity and a lot of resources and all that. And there's a lot of states that have that as well. But for me, Austin just made a lot of sense. And I'd never lived in Texas. I kind of wanted to go somewhere different, try something new. And then the football team, the University of Texas has this legendary program, right. And I just wanted to be a part of it. Even though I wasn't certainly not the best athlete and not one of the best players on the team, but I found a niche that worked for me and found a way to get on the field. And I just wanted to play for a legendary program like that.
So you'd never played football before, and you go and try out for the football team.
No,
so you go to the University of Texas. That's good.
I played baseball and basketball growing up, and I was pretty good, but I didn't have any scholarship offers or anything like that. But I really wanted to play football when I was young, and it just never worked out. When I was a little kid, my mom wanted me to wait till I was a little bit older because I was kind of a late bloomer. And then by the time I was old enough to play, if I wanted, when I was 13 or 14, I was so wrapped up in baseball and basketball, and I was so worried that, well, what if I make the team and then I'm not good enough, or I ride the bench? Like, I don't want to do that. That's not cool. That's not fun. I don't want to, I was such a fear of failure because I didn't really know how to work hard for something yet, that I just didn't play. And I regretted it. It bothered me for years. So by the time I was 29 and finally going to college, I was like, you know what, I'm going to just try out for the team, because I never played football and I always wanted to. And I can't not at least try.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it must help you now when you're speaking to people too, right? Because people have fears about trying new things and changing careers and all that kind of stuff. So now it's not just you talking about it; you've actually lived it, right? To do it.
Yeah, and I think it's like we're never too old to try something new like that, And that's an extreme example where people would be like, "Well, yeah, you're definitely going to be for something like that. That takes so much, such a level of like physical exertion and athleticism. Like, yeah, but." There was still a chance for me 10 years later, to do that. And I probably was in a better position than I would be prior. And then if you take some kind of profession or dream that you have that doesn't require your body to be in tip-top shape, there's no reason to not try something when you're 40 or 50 or whatever. And it may be a new career for you, or a new life, or something that a new passion. Like, why not? You don't have to just stick to what you know. And I studied this when I was younger and got the degree in X, so I have to do X for the rest of my life. Like, why? It doesn't matter,
But that's a good question. Nate. Like, so you get somebody that maybe is in their mid 40s and they've done the same thing all their life. They're unhappy with it. And you and I've changed things all the time too. You've changed things. You've tried new things. We get kind of accustomed to getting out of that comfort zone, right? So what do we do with somebody that's in their comfort zone right now, but they're really not happy? Like, how do you get them? It's easy for you and I to say, well, get out of your comfort zone, do something, but you got to get them to do it, right? What's that first step?
I mean, I always tell people that you have to try things. Like, you have to try things, and you have to commit some time to that. Yeah. I mean, life's all about, for me, it's about sacrifice. And I don't always mean like sacrificing your life or doing something, big and dramatic and, crazy. It doesn't have to be that, but you've got to be willing to make sacrifices with your time, sacrificing some of those comforts if it's something, and for some people, being comfortable is what works for them. I'm not really like that though. I kind of gravitate towards things that make me uncomfortable, because I feed off that excitement, and I love something that's new and different and challenging, and like that just makes me feel alive. And not everybody's like that, but there is a good amount of people that are. And I think we get stuck in our heads and so worried about what everybody else is going to think. Like, oh, this guy, if at the age of 40, he decides to just take this completely different path in his life. Oh, that guy's crazy, or that guy's like something, he's having a midlife crisis or whatever. And it's like, no. Life is way too short to worry about all these kind of things. And
is that true? Yeah.
So if it's something you're interested in, then check it out and like put some time into it. It might not be something that you like in the end. Right. It might not, but if you don't try, you're never going to know.
Right. And even if you make a mistake too, like I've learned now, like I say yes to everything. Right. And even if I fail the first time I try it and somebody's there, yeah, Tom, you told me you could do that. Like somebody says, can you do that, Tom? I say, yeah, I can do it. And then I go fail. And they go, so well, you said you could do it. And I said, well, yeah, I'm not done yet. Just because I failed that time doesn't mean I'm going to fail the next time. Right? Just keep going. But you're so right. We worry so much about what other people think. And a lot of times when people are degrading what you're thinking about doing or whatever, it's because their own insecurities, right? Like if you're really a strong person, you're pulling other people up with you too, right? So I agree with you. Don't listen to other people. Do what you want to do.
No, you're totally right. That's a big problem in society generally. Like, and it's those people that say those things are the ones that would never try anyway. They're too afraid. You know what I mean? So they're going to be the critics. The harshest critics are the ones that aren't going to put themselves out there and actually go for it.
It's funny because when I was playing with the Rangers, they had a program. A lot of us didn't go to school back then. The old way was, it was just playing hockey. We didn't worry about education. And the Rangers had a program during the summer where they would pay for you to go to school. So growing up on the farm, I'd always seen the big trucks come in that would take their milk away and take it to the dairy. And I thought, geez, I always wanted to drive those big trucks. So I saw an advertisement at the back of the paper for truck driving school. So I called the Rangers up. I said, I'm going to go to school. Now they think I'm going to go to the Harvard School of Business or something like that. And they said, what are you doing? I'm going to go to truck driving school. So I went to truck driving school for 3 weeks during the summer. I learned how to drive a truck and never drove it again. But it was just like you're saying, I had something I wanted. Everybody's laughing at me like, what you played in the national hockey? But it's like, I had something I wanted to do and I got it out of the way. So I agree with you totally.
That's cool.
Yeah. So did you go for the team first and then decide to be a long snapper, or did you kind of research and say, okay, this is how I'm going to make the team if I'm a long snapper?
Yeah, I didn't even know what a long snapper was when I went to try out for the team. I played safety. That was with my size. I'm not very big. Right. It was either safety or like slot receiver. There wasn't a lot of options, and so I tried out for safety. I made it as a DB. I was third string though, and I wasn't getting off that third string. I couldn't keep up with those receivers, and I helped the guys at practice because I was giving them a look for the next week's game and all that. And I got to run down on kickoff coverage when we were blowing out Texas Tech my freshman year, and that was great. But it was like there weren't meaningful snaps. I wanted to play meaningful snaps, so I had to identify a thankless job that no one wanted to do, and long snapping is definitely that job.
Yeah,
no one knows who the long snapper is until they screw up. Yeah, and and it's a specialized skill. It's like throwing a knuckleball or shooting a free throw or whatever it is in different sports. It's something that you don't have to be the greatest athlete in the world, but you have to be precise and consistent, and you have to put a lot of time in, put a lot of reps in, and and if you can throw a football overhand. And you got a decent arm, like you can figure out how to long snap. It's just, it's just putting the pieces together. And so I started doing some different Olympic lifts that would help with my velocity on the snaps. Started working on, how to flick my wrists the appropriate way to, get that good spiral going. And then I just put a ton of time in. I was snapping 100 balls a day, and it took a couple months to get, consistent and somewhat accurate. And then that next season rolled around, and I tried out for the long snapping position, and I won the backup job to start the season. In the first game of the year, they'd recruited this freshman to come in, and he was supposed to be the new long snapper for us for the next 4 years. And the first game, there's 101,000 people in the stadium at Texas Longhorn games, and he had a couple of not great snaps, and so the next week I had an opportunity to start, and I did well enough to maintain that job for the next 3 years. And that was sort of that. So it just stuck. And, it was a little niche that I found. And part of it was timing. And like I said, like identifying where's an opportunity on the field that I could help, but also like, where's a job opening going to be, and because the most important thing to me was just playing. I just wanted to be on the field and play football. It didn't matter the position so much as like, I just wanted to be a part of that.
So I'm sure the poor 18-year-old, he's got 100,000 people there. He gets a little nervous, right? You've been already fighting in armies and in war and everything like that. So less of that wow factor, right? You've been through enough stuff in your life.
Yeah. At that time, I think I was 31 years old. And like you said, I'd been to war. I'd done some things with my life and had some experiences. And I still felt those nerves. Don't get me wrong, because it mattered to me. But it's a matter of like, everybody feels nerves. Tom Brady feels nerves before every game, but it's like, are you harnessing those things and using them for positive? Because they're not always bad. Like nerves make you alert. You know what I mean? They they help you react, as long as you don't let them overwhelm you. It's good to have some nerves because it means that it matters to you, and it helps you. It helps you run a little bit faster and jump a little bit higher. You know what I mean? Skate a little bit harder. Like those nerves, like they wake the body up. So it's not bad to have them. It's just, how do you use them?
So your teammates, these young guys, these 18, 19, 20-year-olds, here you come walking in of serving in the Army at 31 years old, being a long snapper. I mean, there had to be like, who the heck is this guy, right? There's a little bit of that.
Yeah. No. I mean, it was definitely weird, I think, for the new freshmen every year. They come in this locker room and it's like all the other guys would tell stories about me. You know what I mean? They telling a bunch of tall tales about, oh, he's coming back from his summer overseas and, you better not look him in the eye or this and that.
Oh, is that
right? I remember I felt pretty welcome in the locker room. It was a little bit weirder around campus because I was 10 years older than the other kids in my class.
Right.
And I definitely would get, plenty of double takes of people that would see me and be like, who's this guy? I mean, he's dressed like a student, but he doesn't look like a student.
Right.
And but it didn't bother me that much. I mean, I was happy to be where I was, and it wasn't that big of a deal. Like most students and and everybody around campus were really.
There's not too many former Green Berets that are coming in. Though, right? That's different. Yeah.
Not that many. But we're out there. We like to go get our education, and there's a great opportunity with the with the GI Bill, and if you serve at least 4 years in the military on active duty, especially post 9/11, I think if you were at least eligible to be deployed or whatever, they take care of your college. At any public school in the country, they help you. If you can get in, you got to get into the school, but they'll help. But they pay your tuition, and that's a big deal. That's a big deal. That's why a lot of people join in the first place. To be honest, like they want that opportunity to go to college, and it's not cheap.
So anybody just tuning in right now, this is a fantastic man here we got in front of us. He served the country in the Army. Then he went to University of Texas and became a long snapper at 31 years old, because everybody does that. And then the turned pro after that with Seattle Seahawks. So you finish up your college career, then you had to try out with Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah. They so 2015, the draft rolled around, and I knew I wasn't going to get drafted, but I was fortunate to play in a senior all-star game after our bowl game my senior year. And there was a bunch of scouts through the week of practices that were there. And I met with about 4 different teams, and, they were interested in signing me and at least bringing me on as a free agent and helping me, give me an opportunity to compete for the position. And then after the draft ended, I got a call from both the St. Louis Rams, who now are obviously in Los Angeles, and the Seattle Seahawks. And both those teams wanted to bring me into training camp and, sign me as a free agent and give me a shot to compete for that position. Both of them also said the odds of you making it are slim, just so you know. I mean, you're 34 years old, you're small. You've only been playing football for 4 years now. So, just manage your expectations here, but you can play. You're in that starting job, and you did well, and we know you could snap the football, and you take care of yourself, and we know what you could potentially bring to the locker room.
Yeah.
So they both gave me that opportunity, and I chose to sign with the Seahawks because they've been to back-to-back Super Bowls, and I just I couldn't turn down that opportunity. They were the best, and so that's where I went. I mean, the odds of making that team is even going to be slimmer than anywhere else probably, but I couldn't turn down the challenge.
Right. So that's interesting, right? Your mindset at that point wasn't just to go the easiest route, right? In fact, you went the opposite way, right? You went to a team that just won, so you less of a chance of doing it. But that was the intrigue for you, right? I mean, be with the team that's the winner. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, definitely. And it was a great experience. I mean, Seattle's a great city, really cool sports town, and yeah, I mean, my teammates were like Marshawn Lynch and Richard Sherman and Russell Wilson, and like
that's right.
All these guys are going to be Hall of Famers,
right?
And it was the way that Pete Carroll, who's the head football coach there, the way that he sort of runs that team, it was very much like a college in the sense of everything was a competition, and he really bred that strong brotherhood in the locker room that not a lot of NFL teams have, And I only played for that team, but I've been in plenty of other locker rooms and met other teams and didn't feel that same type of, camaraderie and connection. So it was a very unique experience. And I'm glad that, even though it didn't last super long, I'm glad that that's the route I took.
Right. Barry Shelley here is a big fan of mine. Barry has served in the Army. Great story. When I met Barry, he had asked me to sign some autographs, so I sent some autographs back to him, and he was very, very emotional about the fact that it really wasn't a big deal. I wasn't going out of my way that much. And then, as kind of to thank me, he had a patch. He was a military police, I believe, so he had the patch on his sleeve that he wore all the time. He sent me that patch, and I have that patch now. So it was a real honor for him to do that to me. But he asked you, did you find that you were just as close to the people you served with as you were with the teammates on your team?
Yeah, I did. I mean, it's a very different experience. Never would I compare going to war and playing a game, and I don't think anybody really would. But man, that locker room is very similar. The camaraderie, brotherhood, like the willingness to go fight for the man on your left and right. Yeah. Like that is the same. And the stakes are different, but the tightness you develop going through training camp and off-season workouts and all the stuff that goes into the 12 games you play that year in college football. It's not that many games, but you put in hundreds of days and thousands of hours of blood, sweat, and tears together. You're going to get close to some guys, and you're not going to like them all. There's plenty of guys. It's not like everybody's your brother. There's plenty of guys in that locker room that I would never hang out with away from practice. But at the same time, there's that tightness where they'd be willing to jump in front of a hit for you on the field or whatever, and they're going to do their jobs that you're successful, so you do the same, and that's a special thing, and it's not like that in a lot of places out there in the world. So I felt that camaraderie and that brotherhood. Those uniforms they're different uniforms, but they have a similar feeling when it comes to working towards something together, and that camaraderie.
Definitely. So I'm reading on your website about the Colin Kaepernick connection. So everybody that doesn't know about Colin Kaepernick, he was a very good quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, decided to take a social stance against police brutality. And he started off and I didn't realize this, he started off by sitting on the bench during the national anthem. And then you sent him a letter that changed his position?
Yeah, I wrote an open letter just through the Army Times, which is a publication that's meant for the military. They have the Army Times, the Marine Corps Times. Every branch is part of the military Times. And it was exactly a year after I'd been in Seattle, and it's the preseason again. And Colin started sitting on the bench, like you said, in protest of police brutality and during the national anthem. And it was a big, we were in the middle of an election cycle. At that time, it was Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton. And, that was a very, very divisive election, much as this last year was. And so our country's already up in arms about a lot of things and feeling quite divided. And so when he started sitting, once again, like it just stirred the pot, and it was this huge uproar, and, all these people were saying certain things about him and about the protest itself. And I got reached out to by, CNN and Fox News and MSNBC. They wanted me to all come on their show because I was in the military and played football. So, I must be the authority on all this stuff. But they think that what they really wanted me to do is come on and debate, argue with somebody about why he's right or why he's wrong or whatever. And I just didn't want to do that because I was like, look, in my mind, I was like, it hurts me to see that because of what those symbols mean to me. But at the same time, I don't know what his experience is like, and what he's trying to do. To me, it seemed like what he was talking about was something that made sense in the sense of I want my country to be the best it can be, and if certain things, if we're not doing the best job policing that we can, and if we need to be held to a higher standard and more accountability needs to occur, then that should happen. Not to say that most law enforcement officers, just like most people in the military, are great people that sacrifice a lot and work really hard, and that's a tough job to do. But when I was in the military, if we had guys on our team that weren't doing the right thing, and aren't serving at the highest level, I don't want to be around those guys, and I don't want them affecting, the esteem that uniform should have. And so I wrote this open letter as if I had Colin in the room for 5 minutes, just kind of explaining my experiences, why I feel the way that I feel, but also saying, I can't relate to your experience, but I also saying, And for that reason, I shouldn't judge you on it. And, at the end of the day, when I took the oath to join the military, it was to defend the Constitution, which includes the First Amendment, and those are the freedoms you're expressing. And so I have to respect that, whether I like it or not. Colin read the letter, was inspired by it, and reached out to me and wanted to meet. So we met a couple days later, and through our conversation is where we sort of come up with this idea to kneel alongside his teammates instead of sit on the bench, sort of away from the team. I thought it was important that he be alongside his teammates, and he said he was committed to not standing until things started to change. And we just kind of talked it out and kind of found a middle ground, I guess. And so that next night when he played in the final preseason game, he took a knee alongside his teammates, and I actually stood next to him when the anthem played, and it was pretty crazy because it was in San Diego, which is a very military town. And it was Military Appreciation Night because the 15th anniversary of 9/11 was quickly approaching. And the saddest part about the whole experience was just hearing the boos from the crowd. And I understand why people were upset about that. You have every right to be that. But if you're upset about somebody not standing when the anthem is playing and you're booing at that same time, like how disrespectful is that, in my opinion? So it is what it is. And, that's why I think our country is a great place, is we have that opportunity to do that. And you don't have to like it and agree with it. And everybody's got a voice and can speak out on why they're with it or against it. But it started an important conversation, and we saw a lot of that sort of come to fruition this last year after the George Floyd situation, and I think without Colin doing what he's doing, it may not have had that same effect.
Right. It's interesting, right? I became a citizen after 9/11. I was born and raised in Canada. So being a naturalized citizen, you go through a whole process of, what the country's all about and the laws and it was very emotional thing. So I'm really patriotic. I love this country too. I think the physical country itself, like Great Lakes, the Rocky Mountains, Grand Canyon, and there's so many fantastic people doing fantastic things every day, like yourself and others, like teachers and people that coach kids and volunteer for stuff. We unfortunately, and I don't blame the media for this because those things aren't really a story all the time, but we hear all the bad stuff that's happening. Right. And I'm with you. Like, listen, I would never take a knee during the national anthem. I will always stand. I'll put my hand on my heart. But if somebody else doesn't want to do that, they have the right to not do that. They're not required by any law to do it. And I think it is our responsibility to make sure that they have their right to do what they want to do, as long as they're not hurting anybody else or breaking any laws. Yeah, we have the right to help them with that stuff. So that's pretty cool. I didn't realize that your involvement in that until
I completely agree with everything you just said. I feel the same way. Like, I feel a great sense of pride in those symbols and the flag and the anthem and all that, but not everybody feels that, and that's all right.
Yeah, totally. Obviously a sad story, but Pat Tillman, he was older than you, correct?
So he passed away right around when I joined the military. He was one of the reasons actually that I finally took that leap, because I didn't join right away after 9/11. Just to, seeing what he was willing to give up, willing to sacrifice as far as like comforts. When we talk about comforts, he was walking away from a big contract, and he just felt compelled to do that because he loved his country so much. And it was really sad how he passed and all that. But no, I never got a chance to meet Pat Tillman, but he's definitely a hero of mine.
It's quite a story. I never forget. I watched the documentary on him. They talked about his rookie year, where the rookies were supposed to take turns bringing in donuts for the veterans. And the one guy, I guess, didn't bring the donuts. I'm pretty sure I'm right in this story. They didn't bring the donuts in. So the veterans took him out in the field and taped them. And they didn't say necessarily, but it sounded like he was nude. And they taped him to the goalpost. And it was out in the hot sun, because he's playing for the Phoenix Cardinals. And Tillman just thought that was wrong. And he didn't care that he was a rookie or not. He supposedly grabbed the scissors from the trainer and walked out and cut the kid down from the pole. And even the kid that was tied to the pole says, Pat, don't do this. Don't do this. But Pat felt clear enough. The whole thing about being a rookie didn't matter to him. The situation was wrong and he was going to change it. So I was watching that. I was thinking to myself, man, I worked all my life to get to the NHL. When I was a rookie, I don't know if I would have done that or not. Like, that took a huge set of,
he was a different cat from everybody. Everything I've heard from people that served with them and people that played with them, because I've met quite a few. He was definitely a different dude, but everybody seemed to have a great amount of respect for him. And,
it's cool. And people that aren't aware of the story, Pat was a really good football player, played for the Phoenix Cardinals. He was defensive back too, wasn't he?
He was a safety. Yep.
Safety, yeah. and he just decided he needed to go serve his country. And him and his brother both went over, I think, too, right? Didn't they both go?
Right. Yeah, they
ultimately
were in the Ranger Battalion.
Yeah. And then
So,
ultimately he got yeah. Ultimately
yeah,
he was
they both went over and served. And Pat, I think he played 4 years, I think, in the league, and or something like that. I might not have the right number, and I think he was up for he had a new contract. He was walking away from millions of dollars to go do that. But after 9/11, he just was, the next day he was like, "This is what I'm doing," and he just made a decision.
All right, so here we got Nate Boyer again. If people don't know, served in the Army. He was a Green Beret. Just decided he was going to play football at 31 years old and be a long snapper for the University of Texas. Just a small little school, football school. Not much going on there. And then he went over and then he played pro with Seattle and played a huge role in Colin Kaepernick taking the stance that he did. Totally support him, even though he didn't necessarily agree with what he was doing. He totally support him. So, all right. So, what else now? You're the other list of things. You're an actor too. You did some movie stuff.
Yeah, I've done some acting. I actually directed a movie in September, October this last year. So we're in post-production on that. And it's a good segue here because what it's about is a former NFL player, first year out of the league. And he meets a guy who was in the Marine Corps who's now living in a homeless shelter in East Hollywood. And it's all based on real people. So these guys meet and they're on paper, they got nothing in common, but they're going through the same sort of transition struggles, leaving the uniform and leaving the team and, that career behind. And they're in their early 30s and they feel like they got a lot left to give. And they sort of help each other through those struggles. So we finished that movie up. I'm in post-production now, but it's based on a real charity that I co-founded with a guy named Jay Glazer. So Jay is he's on Fox NFL Sunday. He's big in the fight community. He's the ultimate insider. He always knows what's going on with trades and injuries and all the things that no one else knows. So Jay and I started that in 2015, and now we're about to be in our 7th city. We have different chapters around the country in Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Chicago, Atlanta, New York, Seattle, and soon to be Dallas. And it's a great deal. It's a great organization. We bring together combat vets and former pro athletes, and every week we train together at the gym. And then we hang out on the wrestling mats afterwards and just talk through our stuff. We've all got things we're dealing with, and it's not all bad stuff. Sometimes it's good stuff we're talking about, but it's a peer-to-peer counseling kind of open forum, just like a locker room where we're just,
That's cool.
we're hanging out and we're there for each other. We're building that community.
All right. That's cool. What's the name of that again?
MVP. It stands for Merging Vets and Players. The website is vetsandplayers.org.
Right. If people go to your website, the nateboyer.com, can they have access to all that stuff there?
Yep. I got a link to that on there.
Do we get to know the name of the movie you're on?
Right now, the working title is MVP, but I don't know. I don't know what we're going to ultimately call it. And
that's pretty cool. You're a director. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I am now. It's my first one, but I produced a few things. Smaller, lower budget stuff, and I'm kind of working my way up. So this was great, though. I mean, we had people like. We had a lot of former players in it. Michael Strahan and Howie Long and Tony Gonzalez is in it. Randy Couture, who's an MMA fighter. And all these guys they sort of play themselves in the film, and they were great. Tom Arnold's in it. Tom Arnold was hilarious in it. So
that's fantastic.
He plays like a fantasy football analyst, and we were able to shoot it. We had some of the locations. We were at NFL Network and all these different places during the pandemic. So many places were kind of shut down, and we just asked for the opportunity because we had the cast and crew was about half military veterans and then quite a few athletes involved as well. And we just got favors left and right from everybody. So it was really cool to see sort of the military and athlete communities come together to make this movie happen.
Right. Do you have any books? So you've written a book, haven't you? Already?
No.
A few books.
I've not written a book.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, I just went through that process. I've got a book coming out. It was one of the best things I ever did. I tell everybody, even if you're not going to publish it, you should go through the process of writing a book. It really forced me to look back in my life and even more so analyze, okay, if I made a mistake in the past, how did I recover from the mistake? What did I learn from my father and grandfather and all that stuff? It's like mine is not about the stories from my life, but it's not about my life. It's more, hopefully a motivational book where people can learn lessons from every chapter in it. So it was pretty cool. I had a really good writer working with me, and I would tell a story, and then he was like, "Okay, let's get into that a little bit deeper." Kind of forced me to look back at things. It was very cool. It was good.
That's cool.
So what's next? Okay, let's get this straight. Green Beret, college football player, pro football player, doing a director as a movie. What's next for Nate Boyer? What's going on?
I mean, I'm loving the film and TV stuff. I want to have my own production company one day and continue to tell stories, because storytelling is really important to me. Right. Yeah, I mean, that's those are the main things. I mean, I think I'm hanging up the cleats, that's for sure. Hanging up the camouflage, and there's a lot of stories I want to tell and be a part of. And honestly, I don't know what's next, because things pop up all the time.
Yeah.
New opportunities arise, and just because I just turned 40 this year, that doesn't mean that that I'm running low on fuel. I got plenty of tank, and I'm just gonna keep my eyes open, and I don't know what'll be next, but we'll figure it out.
I agree. I'm 63 now, and I've never felt better about my life. Just physically, mentally, I've learned more stuff, and and I'm the same way. The more things you do, the more times you interact with people, something else comes up, and the more opportunities happen. So I agree.
Right. Good. That's awesome.
Well, great. Again, I will repeat myself, but thank you very much for your service. You're doing some fantastic stuff for everybody. It's been an honor to meet you. We should do these shows more often. I'd love to. I want to hear more about these movies.
Awesome. That sounds great, Tom. I appreciate you, brother.
All right, bye. Good talking to you.
Have a good one.
See you, everybody.